Good morning. I wanted to have a chat about our house hunting apartment experience moving to another country. So just a few months ago, my husband and I moved from the United States to Romania, and that is where we are at currently. And I was reflecting back on our journey and finding an apartment and thought it was really interesting and wanted to share. We had a timeline of when we were expecting to move here. I began looking up apartments online. Of course, all of the websites are different since it's a different country. I was able to type in Romanian apartment websites and I found one that I could search through. The only problem was everything was in Romanian, nothing was in English. So thank God for Google Translate, because I just downloaded the Google Chrome app and was able to translate most of the stuff. Whenever I was looking at the apartments, there were a couple things that were super different than the US. But the first thing is you have to check and make sure that the apartment has air conditioning, because not every single apartment comes with AC. Another big thing is not all of the apartments in Europe have washers and dryers. I also had to make sure that that was on the listing. And the last big thing was the unit size. They use a different unit of measurement here. So I had to translate all of the measurements to see how big the apartment actually was, because I had no idea. I would say most of the apartments that I found here were around 700 to 800 square feet. There were definitely some that were smaller than that, but in our budget, that's about the size we were looking at. I found some really cute properties on the website, and I hadn't found a realtor yet. We definitely wanted to use a realtor because moving to a new country, we thought they know the area, they know way more than we're gonna know here. So we thought that was a smart move. And I just have to say, finding somebody that would actually communicate with me long-term was a huge deal. A lot of the realtors that I would reach out to, they would respond and say, yes, this property is still available. And then I would say, okay, we would like to write a contract on it. And they would just never respond. I have messages from 6 months ago with no response. So that was fun. This went on for a couple of months as we were looking online, and we started getting closer and closer to our move date, and I was starting to get really anxious because I wanted to find a property before we obviously moved out of the country. We ended up finding a realtor that was really great at communication. He would send voice messages with all of the information that I needed. He was sending me properties every couple of days, asking what I thought, and I ended up finding one that I absolutely fell in love with. It was the perfect location. It was extremely updated and modern. It had huge glass windows. It was just literally the perfect place. So I reached out to the realtor and I'm like, this is what we want. Let's write a contract on this. And obviously I have no idea how the real estate works here, and it is a little bit different. He reached out to the owner, and basically the owner denied working with us because we don't speak Romanian and they did not speak English. So the owner basically refused to work with us. Hindsight is 2020. Everything happens for a reason. So if it didn't work out, it wasn't supposed to work out. I was okay with that. I was definitely super bummed that we didn't get that apartment because I loved it, but I knew that other things would come up and this just wasn't the right one if it wasn't working out. So then basically my husband and I were just talking, and he thought that it would be better for us just to move over here, rent an Airbnb for a week or two. I mean, it made sense for us to do that. I was okay with it. We definitely had the funds to be able to rent an Airbnb for however long and wait until we found a property, and then fingers crossed, once we got into town, we would just stumble upon the perfect place. So basically, We get into town and it was our second day in Romania. We got a message from our realtor and he was like, I found the absolute perfect place. It's in the location that you want. When can we schedule to look at it? So immediately I was like, let's go right away. So we scheduled it for like 2 hours after he reached out, and we were able to walk to it. Literally, when I walked in, I was blown away. Like, this was absolutely everything that we were wanting. It wasn't furnished yet, so apartments in Romania come furnished. Whenever you rent it, you're renting it with the furniture in it, which is so different than the US. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life, but it didn't have any furniture in it. That was no problem. The owner said that they were going to furnish the whole thing prior to move-in, so it was the perfect opportunity and the perfect deal. Under budget actually, and it was still close to like all of the shops and restaurants that we wanted to walk to. So we toured it. The owners were there at the apartment. That was another thing that was a little bit unique because I was a realtor in the US for a couple of years, and the transactions there are very business. They're not very personal transactions. So like, for example, the owner and the buyer never meet and they never speak. All of the communication is done directly through the realtors. If you have questions, if you need something, like, it's really inappropriate for the clients to speak to each other. So I definitely was thrown off just a little bit because that is not something that I expected at all. It wasn't a problem. They were really nice and helpful, and like were able to answer all of our questions we had about like the furniture and stuff like that. So it worked out great, but it was different than what I was used to in my past experience. Another thing that was great is the owners of this property also spoke really good English. They lived in Canada for like 10 plus years, so their English was really, really good. Now I see why the previous owner that didn't speak English didn't want to rent to us, because now we do all communication through the owner, and there have been a lot of things that we've had to like go back and forth on. Okay, so when we finally were able to move in, a couple of differences is, so our apartment has air conditioning, but the only thing is the air conditioning, it's not central air, like central air and heat. Basically, we just have like a unit on the wall that blows out cold air, but it doesn't have a way of circulating up to like our loft, which is right here above me. So it gets pretty hot upstairs and it's really hard to get air to that area of the house. But if you come down like in the living room that's right in front of me, it's freezing cold. So that's one thing that's really interesting is in the US, I would say majority of houses have central air, which basically they've like built an entire system throughout the house to be able to distribute the heat and the cooling. So it is definitely closer to like 75 at night here. That has been a huge change. And as well as we don't have a electric dryer. We hang dry all of our clothes. I have like this foldable like metal rack, and you take your clothes out and just hang them over this rack. But the thing is that's so interesting about this method is all of your clothes are like super stiff, because dryers in the US have like dryer sheets that help with the static in the lint and also like softens the fabric as it dries. So like your jeans, when you hold them up after you hang dry them, will be like a piece of cardboard. Like they're so stiff. That has definitely been a little bit different too. I would say overall, the apartment hunting, it has been such a great experience, and it's been really cool to just like live a different lifestyle and experience things in a different way than what we are used to. So thank you so much for listening to my story time about our apartment hunting journey, for experiencing life, learning and growing with me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.